We start off by talking about the New Orleans Saints, who continue to make news on various fronts, whether it's schedules, the draft, free agent signings, or releasing starters. There is news to report almost daily on the New Orleans Saints. Joining us to talk about that, gentleman that does an outstanding job as the sports director at Fox 8, and he's been in this market forever and a day. And if I could come up with something good to talk about soccer with him, I'd do so, because he'd love to. He is Juan Kincaid. Juan, it's a pleasure. Welcome to the show.
Ken, we can start with the soccer if you want to. I can kind of lead you down the path a little bit.
Okay, well, you ready for the Bundesliga to resume?
I am so ready for anybody to throw a ball on the field and start playing something. I need something live for once. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Premier League. We're going to see Premier League. I know some teams are ready to train. Others are skeptical. And I know that, listen, my son's a huge Premier League fan.
Yeah. It's pretty popular here in the city. I mean, you think about on Saturday mornings at 6 o'clock in the morning, games are already starting overseas, and the bars, certain bars around the city are already packed with fans that love it. So it's a lot of fun. But, listen, I think we're all in the same situation right now. We just want to see something that has the words live in the corner of the TV screen, and it's some kind of sporting event going on that we can all relate to and understand, and just kind of kick back and relax and watch, as opposed to watching such and such baseball team win the College World Series from 1985. I mean, I'm ready for something live, and it's good that the Saints have kind of kept us busy a little bit.
We will talk about the Saints next, but I'm going to talk about the NBA a little bit later. But what about the latest where the league is concerned? And Adam Silver telling players today that certainly if the season resumes, that's a big if, that no fans would likely be on hand. And, of course, the season will likely, if it does resume, would happen at some point in June. And then, of course, the likelihood is that they would take up the idea of playing in a quote-unquote bubble city, whether that's Orlando, Las Vegas, or both. I think this is kind of where we're at right now. Is that how you see it as well?
Well, that's the world we live in right now with COVID-19 and the uncertainty of going forward for any sporting event, any professional, any college. I mean, there are way more questions than anybody has answers for when it comes to sports and what it's going to look like over the next 3, 4, 5 months. And I think what's happening right now is you're seeing the NBA, you're seeing PGA, you're seeing NASCAR find some way to salvage what they can with their seasons to make some revenue, to pay their employees, to pay their players, to give a bit of a sense of normalcy for them, while also being as safe as they possibly can be dealing with the pandemic. So I'm not surprised by this being the approach the NBA may want to go in. The NBA is going to be watched by other leagues around them. Major League Baseball is trying to get back started once again as well, maybe shorten the season a little bit. The NFL is watching closely what happens with these guys, and they'll follow suit with whatever they see fit as being the best way to go. But I think we're going to see all of our sports that we love so much, football, baseball, basketball, going forward here. If you want to play these games, they have to take the approach like the NBA is doing. I like the idea of the bubble idea. You should keep teams in one central area, 2 central areas, not guys coming from all over the country, and you can kind of monitor the health of these players and all the support staff around them, coaches, trainers, whoever else is with them, whoever's in that building. So I like the approach of that. That's what it takes to get the rest of the season played. Because I think we still want to see how the Pelicans can finish the season. If they get an opportunity, 18 games to go, 3.5 games out, and they play the teams around them mostly down the stretch. And my money's on the Pelicans being the better team of all those other teams. So I think from that sense, we want to see these games start back up again because there's so much potential and excitement surrounding that basketball team. But again, first and foremost, there has to be caution going forward. You can't just jump into an arena, start playing games, and say everything's going to be fine when we have no idea if things are going to be fine.
Exactly. And with regard to the Pelicans, listen, if you include Phoenix, who would be the last team of that group of 5 contending for the final playoff spot, the Pelicans would have 11 games left combined against those teams, and they're 8-2 against those teams this year. So it bodes well, and they match up well with every one of those teams.
Ken, if you put those teams on paper with the Pelicans, the way the Pelicans have been playing lately, they're the better basketball team. I think for a man, they're the better team. They're better than Memphis. They're better than Portland. They're better than all those teams that are around them right now. They've just had to play the most catch-up of almost any of those teams, having that 13-game losing streak midway through, having to play catch-up, finally getting Zion back, dealing with Brandon Ingram going down with a bit of an injury every now and then, not having a complete lineup for the most part. And you figure when they come back, they will be as healthy as they've been all season long. And the cherry is dangling in front of them. And the team they have to get around, get through, are the ones they're going to be facing. I put my money on the Pelicans being able to handle those opportunities and what's in front of them, because they again, for me, man for man, they are the better basketball team.
Turning our attention to the New Orleans Saints, we'll take the last move first, and that was today the release of Larry Warford. Comes as no surprise. I've written about it at CrescentCitySports.com. And it's not a matter of him not being a solid player. He was a competent to solid guy. And I think you take the Pro Bowls out of it because, with all due respect, I think we all know Pro Bowls aren't what they used to be. All Pro is what really matters now. But he did go to 3 straight Pro Bowls, and he started all 15 games he played in last year and 44 games over the last 3 years. If you listen to Sean Payton, you certainly got the impression that they weren't pleased with their interior offensive line play toward the end of the season, and he would be Exhibit A. McCoy's a young player that will grow. They made the investment in Andrus Peat for better or for worse, and they drafted Cesar Ruiz. And then, of course, they have a lot of swing guys that they obviously feel good about, that they feel good enough about, and Nick Easton, Will Clapp, and Cameron Tom. So this was not unexpected, and obviously it appears they couldn't find any trade partner or trade value for him.
Well, and they also save a lot of money on the cap as well. What, about $7 million back on the cap?
Just about $8 million.
Still on the hook for 5.5, something like that. So, I think we all saw the writing on the wall when Ruiz was brought aboard on this team and picked so high in the draft. You start saying, okay, who's the odd man out here? And it had to be Warford because, again, you're right. Making the Pro Bowl is one thing. Being all pro is certainly another. And Warford's been a serviceable player. He's been a good player for the Saints, but we started to see some decline in this play as the season went on last year. And so the writing was kind of on the wall when he went out and addressed this position early on to get a guy in Ruiz who can play both center and guard. So, McCoy's not going anywhere. And so you start looking, okay, what's next? Well, Ramchek's there. They have a solid offensive line now before, and it's even better now with Ruiz there. And they save money on the cap, which is important. So it makes you wonder what's going to be the next move for this football team with a little bit more money to work with. That's curious to see down the road. But I like the move that they've made. I like the work this front office has done the entire offseason. They've been smart with the money, which Mickey Loomis usually is, and they've addressed the most important positions on this football team, that being wide receiver, obviously linebackers through the draft. So I think they've gotten better, and it's a roster that's gotten better. They didn't need to get a lot better because it's already a pretty solid roster compared to the rest of the teams in the NFL. So I like the moves this team has made. They've been cost conscious and can still do some things down the line here as we approach it going further into the offseason.
Yeah, this is a young offensive line, a unit that can be together for a minimum of 3 years, maybe as many as 4 or 5, looking at Teron Armstead's contract, and he's the grizzled veteran of the bunch at 29. Otherwise, you're looking at guys that are 21, 22, 25, 26. This is a young group and a good group, so it figures to be good. And obviously the versatility is important, as I alliterated earlier, with all these guys that can play guard or center. And in the case of Pete's played everywhere except center on that offensive line.
No, you're right. And I think the one concern you have is, can you get a full season of play out of Teron Armstead? At this point in his career, you're probably going to say, no, we can't. But if we can get 3/4 of a season out of him, we're not so stressed about being able to move Andrus Peat over there to left tackle, or move somebody over there to kind of fill that void if Teron Armstead goes down. So again, I agree with you. This is a young offensive line. It's talented, and you kind of figure that Ruiz is going to come in and they won't miss a beat. So you're not so upset that you're getting rid of Warford. You kind of understand it economic-wise. But again, offensive line should not be this team's issue going into the football season. They have other more pressing issues, I believe. I think offensive line, they should be steady there as well.
Juan Kincaid with us from Fox 8 Sports. I think it is a better roster. Emmanuel Sanders is a significant upgrade.
Yeah.
I think Malcolm Jenkins is an upgrade over Von Bell, and I respected Von Bell, but I think what Jenkins brings is better for this football team. And then there's the relative health of Sheldon Rankins and Marcus Davenport in particular, because if those two guys are healthy And if Rankins plays the way he played 2 years ago, totally different defense. If Davenport is healthy and lives up to what they think he is, big difference. And then you hope that both linebackers, Anzalone and Alonso, are healthy enough. But I think Zach Bond is a guy that's going to step in and play right away and be that other guy with Davis maybe right away.
I would agree, but I would look at the linebacker core and say, well, with Alex Anzalone, to me, he's the defensive version of Trahan Armstead. Would I like him to play full 16 weeks? Of course. But I don't think it's going to happen because he doesn't have a history of playing a complete season. Going back to the University of Florida, he never played all the games because he couldn't get away from injuries, and we've seen it again this year. When he's on the field, he's a fantastic young linebacker, but keeping him on the field is the problem. I think, to me, that's where the weak spot is with this football team. And I agree with you. Bond will get to play right away. We're going to see what this kid can do because that's where they have necessity and have need there. So I do like to pick up a Malcolm Jenkins. I think, they never, obviously we all know, and Sean Payton's admitted so many times, never should have let him go in the first place. Yeah, that's probably true. But how effective will he be in this system now? He's a lot older, obviously a smarter football player. And I like Von Bell. I thought Von Bell had gotten better the longer he was here. I think he's going to continue to be a really good player and even get better in the system. Marcus Williams is a concern for me back there because he does not play the safety position as well as he should. Does not just struggles with tackling in open field. A lot of problems there. So I wonder if this will be his last year in black and gold. We shall see. But I think defensively there are more question marks on defense than there are on offense with this team.
Yeah, I agree with you about Williams, too. I think this is a telltale season for him and a jury's out season because he just doesn't tackle well. And if you're the last line of defense, especially when you play single high, you've got to be able to get people on the ground. And we've seen too many situations where that has not happened. And he does have instincts, but he's got to prove that he can play more consistently as a whole. And then, of course, with regard to the quarterback position, the question remains, is it going to be Hill? Is it going to be Winston after Breeze, whether that's 1 year or 2 years? Everybody assumes it's 1 year, but I wouldn't totally make that assumption, as some do. But even so, if you're asking me right now, I'd say it's Hill. That's why you made the investment in him. But you have a whole year to deal with that and worry about it. It's a similar situation to Bridgewater. Saints have set themselves up in great shape with the best quarterback room in the league, I believe, once again.
Well, Ken, one thing we've been asking for the last couple of years when it comes to Taysom Hill, when is he going to get a chance to play with the ones in the preseason? If ever there was a time that happened, this has got to be the year where he gets the majority of the snaps with the ones so you can see what he can do over the course of 30, 35 minutes with the ones in the offense. Can he be effective? Can he be consistent? I've gone on record many times on our shows saying I do not think Taysom Hill will be a full-time starting quarterback in the NFL forever. I don't think it'll ever happen because I think teams have to change their offensive philosophy too much. I think the Saints have to change how they want to play football too much, change the offensive philosophy too much for him to be the starter here full-time. Do I believe he could play it? Yes, I do. I think he's a talented player, but I don't think that Sean Payton would want to throw the whole playbook out and say, let's start over with a whole new scheme for this guy who runs it almost as well as he passes the ball. So that's why I think Jameis Winston is not just here as a trial, as a third-string quarterback. I think he will assume the same role as Teddy Bridgewater last year. I think if Drew Brees goes down, then Jameis Winston will be the first guy in at quarterback. That way they can keep the rest of the offense the same and Taysom in his same role. And Hill said about 2 weeks ago that he hopes to play less special teams. We'll see because that's one place he specializes, especially on the punt teams. And so will his roles diminish now because they see him more as the quarterback for the future of this team? I don't think so because I'm still not convinced that Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis, Jeff Ireland, I'm not convinced that franchise sees Taysom as the absolute future of the franchise at quarterback as opposed to being the Swiss Army knife that he is because he's a more effective player and he gives the offense more when he's doing his normal role as opposed to playing quarterback.